Hello and welcome to Bounty in the Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief at Bounty in the Comics. Today I got a story about actor Lenny Henry confirming he will play a Black Hobbit in Amazon's The Lord of the Rings series. Before we get to that, I'd like to ask if you could please hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed. If you are already subscribed, please make sure you are still subscribed because YouTube does like to unsubscribe you for whatever reason. And then I also encourage you to hit that like button and share this video with your friends and family. As I was saying, actor Lenny Henry recently confirmed he will be portraying a Black Hobbit in Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings series. Henry was rumored to play a Harfoot back in July. The OneRing.net's Cliff Broadway reported Sir Lenny Henry portrays one such halfling Harfoot. Henry confirmed he will be playing a Black Hobbit as part of the Harfoot tribe in an interview on BBC Radio 4's Saturday Live show. He told the program, "For the last 2 years, I've been working on The Lord of the Rings, and it's an extraordinary thing. It's the biggest, I think it's the biggest television show that has ever been made in terms of money and headcount. Literally 100 people on set glaring at you and trying to work out what you'll look like 4 feet tall. It's just been an amazing experience, life-changing for me." Later in the interview, he stated, "I'm a Harfoot because J.R.R. Tolkien, who was from Birmingham," he then makes a couple of comments about Birmingham before saying, "Suddenly there were Black Hobbits. I'm a Black Hobbit. It's brilliant." Henry continued saying, "And what's notable about this run of the book, it's a prequel to the age that we've seen in the films and in the books. It's about the early days of the Shire and Tolkien's environment. It's the early days of it. So we're an indigenous population of Harfoots. We're hobbits, but we're called Harfoots, and we're multicultural. We're a tribe, we're not a race, so there are Black, Asian, and Brown, and even Maori types within it. And it's a whole brand new set of adventures that seed some of the origins of different characters, and it's going to take at least 10 years to tell the story, because it's based on the Silmarillion, which was almost like a cheat sheet of what happens next in this world in the first, second, and third ages." He concluded saying, "And the writers have a lot of fun in extrapolating it all out. And it's going to be very, very exciting, and there's a very strong female presence in this. There are going to be female heroes in this evocation of the story, and there are going to be little people as usual." As for whether there are Black Hobbits in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien does not describe any hobbits as such. Tolkien mentions the Harfoots in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring, writing, "Before the crossing of the mountains, the hobbits had already become divided into 3 somewhat different breeds: Harfoots, Stores, and Falahides." He went on to describe the Harfoots, writing, "The Harfoots were browner of skin, smaller, and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillsides." Next, describing the Stores, Tolkien wrote, "The Stores were broader, heavier in build, their feet and hands were larger, and they preferred flatlands and riversides." As for the Falahides, Tolkien wrote, "The Falahides were fairer of skin and also of hair, and they were taller and slimmer than the others. They were lovers of trees and of woodlands." Tolkien went on to provide some more information about the Harfoots in the Fellowship of the Ring. He wrote, "The Harfoots had much to do with dwarves in ancient times, and long lived in the foothills of the mountains. They moved westward early and roamed over Eriador as far as Weathertop, while the others were still in the Wilderland. They were the most normal and representative variety of hobbit, and far the most numerous. They were the most inclined to settle in one place, and longest preserved their ancestral habit of living in tunnels and holes." Tolkien would continue to provide details about these 3 strains, even mentioning that the Falahide strain could be seen in the Tooks. He wrote, "The Falahides, the least numerous, were a northerly branch. They were more friendly with elves than the other hobbits were, and had more skill in language and song than in handicrafts. And of old they preferred hunting to tilling. They crossed the mountains north of Rivendell and came down the river Horwell. In Eriador they soon mingled with the other kinds that had preceded them, but being somewhat bolder and more adventurous, they were often found as leaders or chieftains among clans of Harfoots or Stores. Even in Bilbo's time, the strong Falahidist strain could still be noted among the greater families, such as the Tooks and the Masters of Buckland. So while the Harfoots have browner skin, it's in comparison to the Falahides who have fairer skin." Tolkien also makes it perfectly clear that most hobbits are Harfoots, as they, quote, "were the most normal and representative variety of hobbit." This distinction is seen in The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, when Tolkien describes Frodo and Sam. Frodo, being a descendant of the Brandybucks, is part Falahide. Tolkien writes, "In his lap lay Frodo's head, drowned deep in sleep, Upon his white forehead lay one of Sam's brown hands, and the other lay softly upon his master's breast. In The Hobbit, Tolkien also provides a description of hobbits. He writes, "There is little or no magic about them, except the ordinary, everyday sort, which helps them to disappear quietly and quickly when large, stupid folk like you and me come blundering along, making a noise like elephants, which they can hear a mile off. They are inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colors, chiefly green and yellow, wear no shoes because their feet grow natural leathery soles and thick, warm brown hair, like the stuff on their heads, which is curly, have long, clever brown fingers, good-natured faces, and laugh deep, fruity laughs, especially after dinner, which they have twice a day when they can get it." In contrast to Sam and the description of hobbits having brown fingers, Tolkien does describe men of Haradrim hailing from far Harad in The Return of the King as black. He writes, "He now was destroyed, but Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray, Easterlings with axes and Variags of Khand, Southrons in scarlet, and out of far Harad black men like half-trolls with white eyes and red tongues." Now if we look outside of The Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, the term brown has also been used to describe individuals of Mediterranean descent. As an example, in the 1915 book Myths of Babylonia and Assyria, Scottish writer Donald Alexander Mackenzie wrote, "This distinguished ethnologist is frankly of opinion that the Sumerians were the congeners of the pre-dynastic Egyptians of the Mediterranean or brown race, the eastern branch of which reaches to India and the western to the British Isles and Ireland. In the same ancient family are included the Arabs, whose physical characteristics distinguish them from the Semites of Jewish type." So this book was written in 1915, 2 decades before Tolkien published The Hobbit, and you can see here that Donald Alexander Mackenzie describes the brown race as having people from the British Isles and Ireland. Now if we look back at Tolkien's work, specifically at a graphic novel adaptation of The Hobbit, which was published by the Ballantine Publishing Group in 1990 and approved by the Tolkien estate, it shows Bilbo as what we would describe as a white character. You can clearly see him right there. And then if you look towards the end of that graphic novel, when Bilbo returns to the Shire and they're having an auction of all of the goods in his home, you see that it shows a number of other hobbits. They are all white. So while it's possible there might be black hobbits, they are not described in The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit as such. They're described as a browner compared to the fair Valahides. And clearly, you can see that distinction if you look at Mediterranean people compared to, say, someone from Sweden or of English descent. That's my thoughts on the matter. My name is John Trent, and you've been watching Bounding into Comics.